What's going on, family? It's Brother Coasty at IALLG.com, and we are always building bridges within to explore the world without. Today's talk is all about, I'm not even sure what it'd be called. This is kind of a free flow from the dome, and more than anything, it's a real-time alchemist process that I'm going through right now. And as always, when we're going through these processes, when we're doing the work of the alchemist, it's not just an instantaneous process, but it's something that unfolds. And in the middle of the process, or as the process is unfolding, that is where the aha moments come in, and that is where we see the gold begin to emerge from the melted metal, so to speak. I don't feel like being bothered. I don't feel like being bothered. I don't feel like being bothered, y'all. Those words have life and death in them. I speak a lot about boundaries, having boundaries for your life, and that's fine. It's your birthright to have boundaries. You need to have boundaries. Sometimes you don't want to be bothered. But there's a difference in not wanting to be bothered and not wanting to be held responsible for the actions that you're putting into this world. You have to recognize that this whole world is interconnected. It's interconnected, family. And you have to realize this because nothing is isolated. Nothing is isolated. And when you recognize it, you'll start to think a little more before you do your actions. Because everything that you do does not just affect you, it affects those that are close to you. And that effect ripples out to those that are close to them. It's a ripple effect, family. It's a ripple effect. And when you don't take these things into consideration, if you do something that is erroneous and instead of addressing your error, you choose to ignore it or stay ignorant of it, what you do is you pass pain on to people that didn't deserve it in the first place. You give karma to other people. You give obstacles to other people. You give things to other people. And now they have to work on things that they shouldn't have had to work on in the first place. You alter people's future with your actions. Real deal, Holyfield. You alter people's futures with your actions. Now, I'm not saying you're the only thing that influences the future. They also have decisions they need to make as well. But this is coming from the high level perspective. And again, this is what allows me to stay sane. Allows me to not go off into a fury of anger. And it's because I recognize that not everybody is aware. Not everybody is aware of the degrees of awareness or how their actions impact other people. I'm aware that not everybody is in control of themselves, and they don't really care to be in control of themselves. Family, when you say you don't want to be bothered, or is it you don't want to be bothered with anybody else, or you don't want to be bothered with the truth? And I'm here to tell you, if you have a tribe, whether that is your own family, whether that's kids, whether that's a club, whether that's a following, whatever that may be, and you're the leader of it, you're responsible for the livelihood of the tribe. You are responsible for the livelihood of the tribe. You don't get the luxury of saying, I don't want to be bothered when your actions impact other people. You don't get the luxury of saying, I don't want to be bothered with it. You don't get that anymore. You forfeited it when you decided to do something to put yourself in a leadership position. People don't always watch what you, most often than not, it's not just kids. We don't watch what you say all the times. We watch what you do. Follow along for a second, right? Because, people have silver tongues and they may say things and get you to do certain things. And then you realize the jig is up. But I'm going to tell you what happens on the background that you may not even recognize. You end up repeating that behavior to the next person. You get cheated on in one relationship, and then you end up being a player playing around in between your next one because you're mimicking the behavior of the person before you, not wanting to be on the other side of the trap. So you become the trapper, not the trapped. And this happens unconscious. And that's just one example. I'm not saying everybody does it all the time like that, but it does play a part. It's a trickle effect. That's why they say the abused becomes the abuser. We want to switch roles instead of just escaping the dilemma altogether. And when you say, I don't want to be bothered, when you have actions that impact other people, all you're doing is you just being oblivious. You're doing the same thing that hurt you. And instead of addressing that, you'd rather just pass on the pain. And that's wrong, family. That's wrong. And not only are you just passing on that pain, continue a pattern, but you're also hurting people along the way that didn't do anything to you. You're hurting people that would otherwise be on a very good path. And I'm not saying that you're bad. You're just unaware. And by that token, that means you're ignorant. And by that token, that means that you're harming people. This is important, family, to recognize the effects of your behavior. You must begin to recognize the effects of your behavior, because if you don't, you're ruining people. And you're making it a lot harder for their progression forward. There's only two ways to operate in life. That's either being inspired or inspiring, impacting or being impacted. And when you are choosing to not be bothered, not wanting to know stuff, wanting to be in the dark, you're choosing to perpetuate cycles. You're choosing to not be accountable and responsible for the things that you're doing into this world. You're choosing to stay ignorant. You're choosing to be part of the problem instead of part of the solution. Don't allow this world to use you, family. Look, it's easy to hide immediately, but I'm gonna let you know what makes people implode, what causes the anger, the sadness, the depression, all those negative emotions, what causes those to rot and ferment and build up until people crack, break, or they just have apathy, which is a loss for life. Like they lose their enthusiasm in life. What happens is it's easy up front to hide, but there's a weight that you put on your shoulders. And years and years and years of hiding, that weight gets stronger. That weight gets bigger. It gets heavier. You don't even recognize that you put the weight on your shoulders, but you have it. And you start noticing some weight, but you don't know where it came from. And every time you're faced with the opportunity to come clean, to make a new decision, that weight is kind of like on your neck. So you're not able to turn left and right so much. You stay straight. And so you continue doing the things that you do. And it's crazy because you'll get to a point eventually where you know what you're doing is wrong. You know what you're doing isn't helping you, but you do it anyway. We become sick mentally. And it's because of all the polluted thoughts that we have, the polluted patterns that are stuck in our psyche that somebody gave us, and we didn't take it upon ourselves to clean out our minds. And now we're operating in a polluted environment mentally. And that makes our actions pollution causing to the world. And that makes those who operate in the world in a pollution-filled environment, which puts a pollution environment in their mind, and the cycle repeats. The best way to change the world is change yourself. Change yourself. Please take up the mantle of the alchemist, the mental alchemist. Take up the mantle to do and be different, to do and be better for yourself. For yourself. And by loving on yourself in the best and right way, and I mean really loving on yourself, not just being in a position of power, because you got to be real with yourself when you love yourself. When you love yourself, you got to recognize that you may or may not be a leader at that moment. And so it's best for your well-being to not take up the mantle of a leader, to not take up all the power until you learn how to wield it correctly. Because in doing so, you don't overwhelm yourself. You don't put yourself in situations and predicaments where you can be compromised and where you compromise your own integrity and your own character. And when you avoid those situations, when you get out of those situations or make the right decision so you don't end up in those situations, what you do or what you have done is set yourself up for success. Because you're giving yourself the correct environment to grow. You're giving yourself an honest environment. You're giving yourself love and compassion. And whatever you do to yourself, you tend to do to the world. That's why being an alchemist is so important. That's why loving on yourself is so important. That's why self-preservation is the rule number one of nature. Because when you want to preserve yourself, you act in the best interest of you. And you recognize that you are part of the whole. And when you are part of the whole and you preserve yourself, that means you want to preserve the whole. We got to make better decisions, family. And we can't shy away from the errors that we do. We can't shy away from the things that we do. And I'm not saying you have to announce it to the world all the time, but I am saying that you have to be real with yourself. You got to be real with your apologies. And you got to be real with your purpose. That's all, family. That's really all I have for you. Take it seriously, family, when you make mistakes. Take it seriously, the actions that you're doing day in and day out. They impact more than you can imagine. They're impacting the whole world. They're impacting the people that are watching that may not say anything. They're impacting your future generations. They're impacting your DNA. They're impacting your aura. They're impacting the world. Will you be the change is the question. This is Brother Coasty at 𝐈𝐴LLG.com. We are always building bridges within to explore the world without. Peace, family.